Hello, everybody. We're very excited for the next installment in our series where we partner with state guilds to take a closer look and dive into their current successes, challenges, and state level trends. So often we have a pulse on what's going on in our home states and even on the national level. And we hope these conversations can offer you with valuable insights into what your next door neighbors and maybe not so next door neighbors are facing. And today we're talking to our friends over in North Carolina. And Lynn, because you are to the right of me, I'd love to learn a little bit more about you first.
Sure, yeah. So my name's Lynn Auclair. I'm the owner of Deep River Brewing Company. It's owned by me and my husband, Paul. We opened our doors in 2013 in Clayton, North Carolina, which is about 20 minutes east of Raleigh. We have 25 employees, of which are 18 are full time. We do about 6,000 barrels a year. And our brewery is actually located inside of a historic cotton spinning mill that was built in 1902. So we renovated it back in 2012. We opened in 2013, and it's turned into a really cool place with a huge outdoor patio. We have 35,000 square feet, and of that, about 5,000 square feet is tap room of indoor-outdoor space, and we have 24 beers on tap.
Oh my gosh, that sounds like an amazing facility. And
It's
Lynn,
pretty cool.
before we went live, you mentioned that you came down from New York. How did you end up in Carolina?
Yeah, I grew up in Rochester, New York, and went to Rochester Institute of Technology for packaging science. And 2 years into my degree, I decided that I really hated the snow. And at that time, only 5 schools in the country offered packaging science, and one of them was in South Carolina. And so I transferred to Clemson University, graduated from there in 2005, and I got a job in Raleigh along with my husband, Paul. And we've been here ever since.
We're going to dive into it shortly, but it's been awesome to watch beer grow in Carolina. Thanks for being here, Lynn. Lisa, you're up.
All right. I'm Lisa Parker. I'm the executive director of the North Carolina Craft Brewers Guild. I've been working with the guild since 2015 at this point, and we've seen a lot of growth in that time.
And Lisa, how did you find your calling with the guild?
I was a nerdy craft beer fan who actually subscribed as a consumer to the guild's Pint Hound newsletter back in the day. And I saw a job posting. And at the time, it was a part-time membership coordinator position. And I was looking for something part-time as my kids were heading back into school.
And you've never looked back.
Never looked back.
I love it. Les, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. My name is Les Stewart. I am Chief Brewing Officer and co-owner here at Trophy Brewing in Raleigh. Our model is currently we produce 5,000 barrels a year. We have 4 locations, 2 of which are branded with the brewery names. Inside of those 4 locations, we have 3 restaurants. So kind of run a really aggressively hybrid kind of pub model, though we self-distribute to a kind of sub-regional area here in the Triangle. And we've been open since the end of 2012, and haven't looked back. It's been a wild ride, especially over the last couple of years. But of course, Lynn and I also serve on the Brewers Guild here. I am currently serving as vice president on the Brewers Guild and chairman of legislative affairs. So happy to dig into some of that today.
Well, thanks for being here. And Les, I remember visiting, I think, your original location in 2014, and the beer was fantastic. And I think I had one of the spiciest pizzas that I ever had in my life.
Yeah, that would be our Daredevil pizza, which is still on the menu. That is a town favorite for sure. Highlights some stuff, and that was back when I was running a little brew house. It was a 100-gallon system that was stuffed back into the corner of that building at about 500 square feet. It was fun. Those were the days. Definitely a lot different than the operation that we're running now, but I still look back fondly on those moments.
Yeah, so I guess let's dive into that, Les. So you and Lynn kind of opened around the same time, 2012 and 2013, and a lot's changed in then. Like the number of breweries in the U.S. has literally over tripled since both of you opened up your first tap rooms. So, what about the North Carolina beer landscape stands out to most when you were comparing, when you opened versus now, which has been about a decade?
Yeah. Lynn, do you want to take a stab at that? Or?
Yeah, I think, for me, like one of the things that has not changed over the years, which I absolutely enjoy, is the camaraderie between the breweries. Is, you figure as more breweries open, the more and more competitive it gets. But I feel like we've all maintained that cohesive, we're one dream, one team, one dream. Everybody gets along. We borrow grain from other breweries, borrow supplies from each other, and we always, return the favor, borrow hops from somebody and give hops back. And I love that we've maintained that over the years, and it is competitive. I'll give you that, but it's more like friendly competition, and I've enjoyed that, how that hasn't really changed over the years.
At what point did it become more like friendly competition?
I feel like it's always been friendly competition. Like when you go into a bar or restaurant, you're trying to get your beer on tap. The last thing you want to do is take another North Carolina brewery's tap. You're aiming for like the big guys. The ones that are brewing 100,000 plus barrels a year or more. And so I feel like it's kind of always been friendly. I think you have one or two out there that might not be so friendly, but for the most part, it's always been real friendly.
It's great you all have maintained that. Besides the number of breweries that have grown in Carolina, what else has changed?
I'll jump in there for that one. I mean, I think, watching trends and what people were looking for in beer and to get out of their beer in 2013, 2014 is probably a little different than it is even today. And heck, even 4 years ago, it might be different than today. I mean, I'm thinking back to those 2014 moments when the challenge was digging up as much information on a historic style that was brewed in Eastern Europe at some point in time in history, and trying to recreate that and put that in front of people, and that was a fun thing. Or using really outside the box techniques and ingredients at the time which are really common today. And that was well ahead of the hazy movement that we've all been through now. And we still are clearly obsessed with IPAs, and Goza is a word that you can say today, and it's expected to be understood, but you had to explain that what it was and how it should be enjoyed back then. So I think it was a different world. The packaging world has changed too. I'm sure Lynn can speak a lot to this, but I mean the movement from glass to aluminum, and where 750s were in 2016 compared to where they are now is really some big differences that are really challenging for a otherwise strapped capital segment of the market that we are, in terms of being able to invest and efficiently run changes in packaging, things like that as trends change. So kind of dancing around the question there, just highlighting some of those differences.
Thanks for sharing, Les. Lisa?
Yeah, just hearing you talk about, Les, the now that Goza is a almost commonplace beer style name, great story on that I think highlights that a bit. Once upon a time, 2015, my very first GABF, where I had the opportunity to pour North Carolina beers, one of our breweries sent a Goza in that lineup. And I had it ready to pour in pitchers lined up on front of North Carolina's table. And it was at the point in the festival that people are becoming a little less picky about what they were drinking. And so I had a fella come up to me, and he just goes, "That one." And because it was the very pale yellow, light looking beer in the pitcher. And so I started to try to explain to him what that beer was and provide him a description. He's like, no, just pour it. That's the one I want. I'm like, all right. So I poured it, and I watched him walk away with it. And it was this Goza was a little bit sour. And I see him get about 10 paces out, take a sip, and all of a sudden he just stops and turns around and looks at me, and I'm like, "So that's a Goza?" Let me tell you about this style. He ended up loving it and came back 3 more times to visit our booth just for that beer. But it was his first time trying it.
Oh, very cool. So I guess looking at the North Carolina craft beer consumer, let's say 2013 versus now, we've talked about Goza's kind of like in the middle of there. What do you see the Carolina beer drinker craving differently today? Is there anything unique to North Carolina that you're seeing that we might not see on a nationwide level? Or I'd
So,
love to hear your thoughts on that.
so I think one of the unique things that North Carolina has is we have our own malt in the state. In fact, North Carolina has 3 malt houses, and we have breweries, all across North Carolina and outside of North Carolina that are really making incredible use of North Carolina malt. So we really are getting that pint to pour, or rather the plow to pint beers with North Carolina grains, North Carolina malts. And it's great because they really are segmented across the state, with brew house in the Piedmont, in the Triad, and in the mountains, or a malt house.
Are there any other ingredients outside of malt that come natural in North Carolina that you're seeing in beers?
Yeah,
One thing I'll take that one.
I'll jump in there. One thing that we tend to use, and it's really more welcome, of course, as we've expanded, what the definition of beer is, and what we can move in our tap room, is we use a lot of fresh fruit in our beers, whether it's on the sour side or whether it's a fruited IPA. And so we're actually working with North Carolina farmers. In addition to wheat and barley farmers, we're working with fruit farmers. We were actually lucky enough to be located right here by the farmers market, so we have direct connections to them. And it comes in. We had to invest in a lot of fruit processing equipment and things like that to make it happen. But that also represents a good amount. We have a couple of other types of ingredients that we're able to kind of work in there from North Carolina as well.
So, Les, in the last conversation we had featuring a guild was with South Carolina. They bragged a lot about they have more peaches in Georgia. What fruit do you see the most of naturally in Carolina?
Well, so we have a lot of fruits. One thing is we've got very specific seasons. So what we tend to do is follow the seasons of North Carolina. So if you follow our releases across, particularly from March all the way through September, you'll go through strawberries, blueberries, blackberries, into peaches, and then into watermelons, and then even sweet potatoes and things like that as you get into fall. So we have this wonderful range of things as they come to market. And if we can do our job just right, we're usually a week or two behind because it takes time to make beer, but we're releasing ours in the same process of the different harvests as they hit the market. And that really seems to resonate with people that appreciate the agricultural production as a whole across the timeline of the summer here in North Carolina. But I'm sure Lynn has some thoughts about that as well.
Yeah, I know one of the cool beers that we do is called Joko White Tater. We actually use white sweet potatoes from a local farmer here in Johnston County where we're located at. And, they come out around October. And I've never had a white sweet potato until I moved down to North Carolina. And it's basically it tastes like a sweet potato, but it has a texture of a white potato. They're super sweet and they have lots of sugar in them. So we actually roast them and throw them in the boil and extract all those sugars out of them. And obviously that's great for the fermentation process. So it's a really cool, unique way to use North Carolina grown produce. And it is definitely a super unique style beer. It's a Belgian double, but we actually put marshmallow in there too. It's not always the smartest and easiest thing to do, but it's almost like a sweet potato pie. So yeah, and a watermelon for us is really big too. Watermelons are very plentiful, so we use that in some of our beers as well.
You all are making me thirsty, and it's only early in the morning still.
We've even used North Carolina peanuts in our beer, which have grown up towards Virginia on the eastern side.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to make a plug for North Carolina oysters. A lot of our breweries work with the Oyster Association, and we have delicious oysters coming out of North Carolina. So it's one of my personal favorites, an oyster stout.
Yeah, we've got an oyster goza that we're producing in a few weeks for a oyster festival coming up. So
yeah, that'll be a good time. So Lisa, looking at Carolina right now, North Carolina, I should say, how many breweries do you have operating in the state?
Yeah, we have right about 420 permitted breweries across North Carolina at this point, with more coming. We've got breweries in planning, also registered in our membership. So we know there's more on the way.
When you first started about 8 years ago, how many approximately were there in operation?
About 120, I want to say 130, right about then. So we've had some significant growth.
Wow. So I guess, looking at the past 8 years you've been involved, it's over tripled, a lot like the national level of things. What do you think has accounted for this growth in North Carolina for the number of breweries you're seeing? And what are you most proud of?
Yeah, I think one of the big things is we have a supportive state for the industry. So we have some of the best legislation and laws in the South for the beer industry. We have communities that support us. We have a lot of community involvement and interest from our community economic development partners, our tourism partners. So we see this all feeding into a supportive, and as Lynn was talking about, a very collaborative craft beer environment for new businesses to be opening.
Now, you mentioned you have some of the best legislators. Can you give me an example of how that's been beneficial to beer in Carolina?
Right. So, we popped the cap in 2005, and that allowed our ABV limit to raise above 5% up to 15%. And we've been working on steady progress since then. We have very favorable self-distribution laws. We have, we can do beer to go, package to go. We've got brand new social districts now that we're partnering with our towns and communities to enable essentially open container within certain parameters and timeframes within our communities. So a lot of these laws have really benefited the growth of the industry. I think also, if I can say, we had the governor's support over the past number of years and through COVID, which was tremendous for our industry and really allowed a lot of our businesses to hang on through what was an extremely hard period for us.
Absolutely. No less, as chair of the Government Affairs Committee for the Guild, what are your thoughts on, the legislative, wins that you all have had over the past, decade even?
Yeah, I mean, to Lisa's point, we're no, we make no bones about it. The idea that, yes, comparatively, we do have a great situation, but there's also things that we can achieve and want to achieve legislatively to make it even a better, situation for our membership, including improving our excise tax. We have one of the higher excise taxes in the union, and so we're working on getting that down. Franchise law and things like that are other elements that we tend to focus on as we want people to have their own kind of determination of their own success in business, and don't want to be kind of driven by state law in that regard. So there's a few things that we continue to work on. Sometimes it's a little esoteric, getting into the nitty gritty of permitting and some other things. Though we tend to have successes, we dig in deep, we figure out what's wrong. Even if it affects just a small percentage of our membership, we make sure that we're going at it with our full good faith effort to get it changed for the better. So those are some of the things that we focus on. And there is resistance in all that regard. Whether it's occasionally, sometimes we're on the same side of the wholesalers, sometimes we're on the other side. Sometimes we're on the same side of the bar and tavern owners, sometimes we're on the other side. So we have friends that we can talk to that we may disagree with sometimes, but oftentimes we can find alliances where they can be achieved. So it's been a very interesting last couple of years, and really excited about what we can possibly achieve in the next few years.
I love hearing that. So North Carolina receives a lot of recognition as being a very strong guild. Like internally, what has helped you get to this level, and what procedures and processes in place that you have, do you credit for a lot of the success?
So, we are very fortunate to have, we just appointed hired our fourth staff member here at the Guild. So we have a lot of backing within the Guild staff itself to get things done. In addition to the 4 staff members, we have 2 lobbyists and a general counsel attorney. working with us as well. So it really allows us to dig into those issues that Les was talking about, and divide the work among multiple hands, and take it from multiple angles, so that we can effectively work at the ABC Commission on regulatory issues and rules. We can effectively work with our legislative champions over on Jones Street in Raleigh. We can effectively work with the Department of Revenue. That's one of the big things we'd like to see moving forward, is, better streamlining of reporting processes. So we're really trying to hone in on the processes and protections that are going to make life easier and more clear and safer for our breweries moving forward.
Well, that all makes a lot of sense. Les?
If I can jump in there, one thing that I want to say, and is one of the reasons that Lisa's been able to do all of those things, is because of the effort that she and her team, and over the last few years, the Guild has put into achieving financial solvency and really making our financial picture much better as a Guild, diversifying our revenue streams, and really professionalizing the Guild as a whole. It has been a pleasure to watch it. And see what has really happened from an organizational standpoint to give them the kind of tools that they need to be able to do what they're doing right now. So it is I definitely want to stand up and applaud the Guild staff in that regard.
Great work, team.
Oh, thank you, Les. Well, and we have a very productive board, and an extremely supportive and cohesive board, which is tremendous. I don't think that can be overstated enough. The cohesiveness of the board, the willingness to work together, the willingness to take off individual brewery hats, and focus on the work that benefits the industry as a whole, has just been outstanding year over year. And so we wouldn't have been able to move forward nearly as well without that.
Awesome. Now I want to kind of change it up for a minute. So I live next door. I live in Virginia. I've spent a bit of time in North Carolina over the years. And, early on, Asheville got a reputation of being one of beer's biggest destinations. But there's a lot of other regions in North Carolina that are growing and getting recognized. I'd love to hear a little bit more about your thoughts on the region seeing growth and recognition, in North Carolina and abroad outside the state.
Well, I don't think you can talk about the North Carolina craft beer scene these days without, looking right at Charlotte. Charlotte right now has more breweries within the city than any other area in North Carolina. They also have been killing it with winning awards these days. GABF, World Beer Cup. That region is really producing some magnificent beer. But we've got amazing craft breweries all over the state. And I think that is what makes us so strong, whether it is, breweries. We've got incredible beer scene in Wilmington. But even further out, we've got breweries on the Outer Banks that are fantastic. We've got breweries in the high country of the mountains. So, everybody knows Asheville, but man, if you venture out of Asheville and into the high country and the surrounding areas, you're going to find some incredible breweries there as well. The Triangle area is just filling with breweries right and left. And so with 420 statewide, mountains to coast, it's, all the little towns, breweries are putting those towns on the map.
Sometimes we're all guilty of only talking to the people closest to us. So how do you maintain and maximize engagement between breweries across the state? Are there any, strategies or campaigns that have worked really well to bring people together, from different areas?
Go ahead, Les.
Oh, I was just going to jump in there. One of our goals as a Guild board over the last year has been to kind of make sure we are engaging in conscious development of our board and its diversity, both in terms of demographic, but also in terms of geographical diversity, and looking. So we're doing things like offering travel stipends for people traveling further distances to make sure that we are recruiting a truly diverse geographic representation for our membership. So making sure just to stay aware and actively reach out to those parts that otherwise may have a tough time engaging. So that's just one thing that we're doing to make sure that the Guild's reaching out to those harder to reach areas.
Lynn, as a brewery owner, how do you stay connected to others in different regions?
It's tough because I find myself very rarely getting out of Johnston County, but being part of the Brewers Guild's actually been really helpful because we get to meet in person once a quarter, and it kind of brings, 10, 15 breweries together. And then the Guild does a great job of having socials afterwards. And they kind of strategically place each quarterly meeting. So like one might be in Charlotte, the next one might be in Asheville, one after that might be in Wilmington. And then the Guild puts together a social. So they invite all the breweries to come out after our meeting and have a beer with us and get to ask questions. And that helps keep us connected to a lot of the breweries, especially the younger ones that have a lot of questions, and they want to come in and be like, oh my gosh, I know you've been open for 10 years. And how did you do this? Or how did you overcome that? And I think, the Guild also puts together the State Public House at the North Carolina State Fair. And that's a great opportunity for all of us to come together, have a beer, support the Guild, fundraising effort for them. And, we can volunteer our time and pour beer and meet the public. And so they just do a really good job of putting together socials and keeping us all connected and letting us interact with each other.
So how long does the State Fair Public House go on for?
So it is an 11-day event. We spent about a week ahead of it building a tap room in Dorton Arena on the fairgrounds. And then we spend about a week after it breaking down that tap room. But yeah, we see about 20,000 visitors come through the public house over those 11 days. And last year we poured right about 158 half barrels of beer during that period.
Wow. So why are events like that important for the growth of North Carolina beer?
So, just the easy answer, number one, this event is the Guild's largest fundraiser. So that is something that really helps the Guild. Les was talking about financial solvency. This particular event is huge for the Guild for that reason. But also, and the best reason is that with 20,000 people coming through from all over the state, it is the state fair. So people come from all corners, we get a lot of out-of-state visitors that come to the North Carolina State Fair. And being able to pour beer, serve them beer from all over the state, that introduces them to not only various breweries, but various beer styles and different ingredients that are being used. It's eye-opening for a lot of visitors.
Well, that's a fantastic event. Now, going back to what you were talking about, Lynn, earlier about the regionality and bringing people together quarterly, were you referring to your Brew Smart series, or is that something separate from what you were explaining?
So the Brew Smart, so the Brew Smart is put on by the Guild, but it is separate because we have our quarterly Guild board meetings. And then after that, we do the socials. And then the Brew Smarts are in addition to that. So there's actually quite a bit that goes on throughout the year that's put on by the Brewers Guild. I think this week we're going to Drive Shack on Friday, I think, for a fundraiser for the PAC.
Friday.
Political Action Committee.
Drive Shack? I don't know if we have those here in Virginia.
Yes, thank you, Lynn. So let me let everybody know, Drive Shack is a super fun golfing facility. It's where you stand on a and I don't golf, so pardon me on this, but you stand on a platform and you drive golf balls out into what I think of as like a skee ball kind of course. There's a way better description of this out there.
I love the skee ball reference though.
Where there's holes and you try to get it close to the holes. And but it's a lot of fun. And so we've got 10 bays reserved at Drive Shack to invite folks to come on out, socialize with us, spend an afternoon hitting golf balls, enjoying, beer and snacks. And it's just going to be a lot of fun on a Friday afternoon. So Friday, September 15th. Go to ncbeer.org. It's open to everybody. Help support our PAC. Every ticket sold supports our PAC.
That's awesome. Now, what other type of events do you all do? I mean, we've talked a lot about just the meetings, the brew smarts, the fundraisers. I know recently you just finished the judging, if I'm not mistaken, for the North Carolina Brewers Cup. How'd that go?
So it went great. We had 872 entries from over, I think it was 122 breweries that participated. It's the largest beer competition in our state. It's professional entries only. And we got to taste a lot of incredible beer. We bring in certified judges from all over. We have judges coming as far as, we've got judges coming in from Virginia, judges coming up from Georgia. And so we run, because of the size of the competition, we run 2 simultaneous judging sites, one in Raleigh, one in Asheville. And so half of the flights are transported to Raleigh, the other half are transported to Asheville for a weekend of judging.
No, very cool. And we've also got some exciting things coming up this November. You've got your 10th conference. It's the 10th anniversary of launching the conference. Looking back to when I suppose you first started, would it have been 2013?
So it would have been 2014. We did skip a year due to COVID.
So looking back at that first conference, how many people do you think attended that inaugural North Carolina Brewers Conference?
Oh,
Les, were you there? Lynn, were you there?
Either of you there?
Yeah. No, I don't think I was there at the first.
It was in Greensboro.
I can't remember.
I'm pretty sure my husband went, but I don't think I was there.
Those early years, I imagine attendance was a little bit less. How many people do you expect at your 10th this year?
So we are anticipating somewhere in that 800 to 1,000 attendees this year. And, and at this point, we have really one of the largest industry trade expos in the Southeast as well as part of this conference. I know back at that Greensboro conference, the trade expo was like on little cocktail tables that everybody had. So we've grown since then for sure. But it's 3 days of education. We'll be running workshops. We'll be running 3 educational tracks on Monday and Tuesday, and it's a big time. We've got a band coming in concert, the Brummies, if anybody's a fan, and so it's going to be a lot of networking, socializing, and learning.
Love it. Lynn and Les, what do you love most about your state's Brewers Conference?
Oh man, go for it, Lynn. What you got? Oh,
Lynn might be frozen there. I'm sure.
Okay. I can jump in. I love the socials. I mean, the socials for me are my favorite part. We're all done for the day and everyone's like, let's go get beer. And usually there's some organization that's sponsoring one at a different brewery and we get to go bar hop. And I love that part. And the educational parts of it are super fun. And, doing like the off flavor classes and, and getting to do like legislative classes, learning a bunch of different things. I think that's probably the coolest part for me. But the camaraderie and seeing everybody from across the state that you only get to see once a year is pretty cool.
Definitely.
Yeah, I also enjoyed the expo part of it, where we've got the vendors that we deal with all the time, but we don't always get to see face to face, and they're all in the same room, and you just get a chance to kind of walk around and kind of catch up with some folks and, ask them about what the new products are coming out and all that kind of stuff. It helps you kind of get an idea of what some new opportunities are in terms of process or ingredients coming up or other opportunities, whether it's, software or, merch, they're all there. So it's kind of great in all those regards.
So I need a pro tip. So I'll be joining you all. I'm leading a panel at the conference coming up. Is there any suggestion of something I can't miss out on? What do I have to do that might not be on the schedule or, maybe not something I would initially be gravitated towards is something I have to do while I'm at the conference?
Hit the breweries. One thing that's really nice about Winston-Salem is it's walking distance from like 5 breweries or something right there, and they're all great. So just like buy yourself some time on one of the evenings and just do a little brew crawl or pub crawl to the breweries that are nearby, it's a blast. Everybody's kind of prepared. I think the breweries in the area look forward to that weekend and are ready for it, and have their best beer on tap. So definitely do a little pub crawl.
I look forward to drinking many of them. And Lynn, you talk about how, the guild event is a great way to just kind of keep the relationship with your in-state brewers. But I'd love to hear from you and Les about how you're communicating with brewers out of state. And Lisa, from your perspective, how you're engaging with other guild leaders and bringing back ideas from both for Les and Lynn on the brewing side, operational side of things, and Lisa on the guild side of things to make, your breweries, your guild even stronger.
I personally don't have a lot of interaction with breweries outside the state. I think like the times I do is when I travel up to New York to like my husband's hometown. They have a brewery up there, and we kind of get to ask them how they do things and how their state kind of functions when it comes to beer and taxes and things like that. But as far I'm pretty stuck in North Carolina.
It's anytime we run into a process type situation or those kind of things, we definitely reach out to breweries that we know are doing using unique ingredients, using unique processes. We've got a lot of friends in Denver, for example. We'll do a few events outside, and we'll always try to plan, seeing friends from out of state. I would say most of my out of state, deep dives and context more recently have been about comparative legislation, and especially as we're seeing a lot of modernization of our alcohol laws in North Carolina, and both on the beer side of things and in what otherwise might be maybe even competition type segments like ready to drink cocktails or different kind of elements like that, other alcohol segments. What it means to operate in a different kind of environment in these other states has been really interesting to kind of hear. Is this a good move? Should we try to throw up some roadblocks from making this happen because it's not a good situation, or is it fine? Especially as you have the rise in marijuana laws, for example, and what potential competition they bring to our segment or not, and trying to talk to other breweries in other states and see what their experience is that are currently in different environments.
Awesome. Thanks, Les.
Yeah, and from the guild vantage point, I give tremendous props to the Brewers Association for helping keep all of us guild leaders and guilds around the country connected. We have the opportunity. We sort of have our own track at the CBC. We have our own, super secret, I've heard people say, Slack channel amongst all the guild leaders. So, I mean, we're pretty connected day to day with that. We reach out to one another all the time. So whether it's Paul in New York, or Caroline in Texas, or Shawnee in Colorado, I can pick up the phone or just shoot them a text anytime, which is great. In fact, Les and I were just up in Washington, D.C. In July, and we all got to lobby on Capitol Hill together for some of federal legislative initiatives.
That was really neat. It was really great to see Lisa in her element and with the other kind of brewery guild staff from Texas and Ohio and some of the other notable guilds around the country. And it was really great to see like the comparison of experience and all that kind of stuff going on. That was really cool to witness.
That sounds like a good time. So, we talked a little bit about how you all do the North Carolina, the fair, and you have the booth there that serves a ton of beers. But October, which we're going to be at before we know it, it's crazy to believe. I mean, we're recording this late August. October will be here before we know it. But it's October is North Carolina Beer Month. Talk to me about why this initiative is important for what you're doing in the beer world.
Yeah, so this is one of our big consumer initiatives. One of the three main tenets for the Guild is promoting North Carolina beer on the state level, on the federal level. And so we have NC Beer Month. And that's really a time for us to help encourage craft beer consumers and tourists to North Carolina to come in and into the state and then explore our breweries. So go into a tap room, try the beers that they have. Fall is a great time in North Carolina. The leaves are changing. The weather is super pleasant. So many of our breweries have incredible outdoor spaces to take advantage of. And we help bolster that with an app from Untapped, where you can essentially earn badges for every 5 breweries that are visited. You earn a badge, and for each badge you earn, you get an entry into an NC Beercation sweepstakes. So it's really an incentive just to get out. You don't even have to have a beer, but just checking in geographically at a brewery will enter you into the sweepstakes, and we're working on what that sweepstakes is going to look like right now. So stay tuned for those details. We'll also have the governor making a proclamation that this is NC Beer Month, and taking that focus on what the North Carolina craft beer industry does for economic impact and jobs, and how it is developing our small towns. A lot of breweries are really bringing life back to our small rural areas.
No, 100%. And you've all shared so much neat things about North Carolina beer. And I like to kind of wind down with, if other industry professionals walked away just knowing one thing about North Carolina beer, other industry professionals, what would you want them to know about North Carolina beer?
Our conference is open to you. You Sorry, I went sales there, but but please feel free to come out to our conference. It's not just, you don't have to be a North Carolina Guild member or North Carolina brewery to come and network with our incredible community of brewers.
I agree with that one. There's so much value in just learning from one another, outside of our own, towns, cities, states, and regions. So that's a great idea. Les, how about you?
Oh, what to know about North Carolina beer? I mean, know that it's not one thing. Know that we're not just Asheville, that we have a great diversity of breweries across the state, from, tap room exclusive, 200 barrels a year, incredible little breweries in the middle of nowhere, to breweries that are producing 50,000 barrels and making a statement on the East Coast. And we are, and there's just so much to explore. So if you're going to make a beer trip to North Carolina, well, you're going to have to make it, at least four beer trips to North Carolina and cover different regions, because we're a big state and we have a lot of incredible and diverse breweries.
And I've been extremely impressed with the growth of Carolina beer. So great work. Now, Lynn, you got to go first earlier. Now you get to go last.
Oh boy, I was going to say exactly what Les said. We're not just Asheville. We're not just Charlotte. There's a whole slew of breweries across the entire state, and small historic cities. Almost all of them have a brewery downtown, and we have Outer Banks, we have Wilmington, we have Raleigh. And it's just, the whole state is like old but new. It's historic, but it seems new. And we have just a diverse group of people that live throughout the state. They're here from all over the world. I just love it. So I think that would be about the same thing that Les said.
Awesome. Well, Lisa, Les, and Lynn, thank you for this conversation. I've enjoyed learning so much about North Carolina beer. I can't wait to experience your 10th conference firsthand in November. So thanks for sharing your insight with other industry professionals. And is there anything else you'd like to add?
Oh, we just so appreciate you having us on. This has been a lot of fun, Andrew. Thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah, thanks for the resources that CBP brings. So
appreciate you, Les. I look forward to having that pizza again very, very soon. And Lynn, I need to visit your brewery as well next time I make the trip down.
Yes, and I'll bring you some beer to our next conference.
I won't say no. We'll see you in Winston-Salem, everybody. Have a great day.
See you there. Bye-bye.
Bye.